Okay, if you are new to the UFO/UAP topic, well, there is a long history, and I can just break down a little bit where this all begins, okay? The American public has been fascinated by UFOs, or as the government now calls them, UAPs, which is like unidentified anomalous phenomena. And it's been going on for, years, literal decades. All the way back to like 1947 when a rancher found a bunch of wreckage outside on a field in, Roswell, and the U.S. Army Air Force issued 2 contradictory press releases in the same week. We did a whole episode on that if you want to check that out. It also goes to Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official UFO investigation program that ran from 1952 to 1969 and investigated over 12,000 sightings. And of course, there's, the congressional witnesses and the intelligence community whistleblowers and the declassification activists who have been pushing for a moment like this for a really long time. And the pivot that led directly to what happened just a few days ago came in 2023. When a former intelligence officer by the name of David Grusch testified before Congress under oath. And he claimed that the U.S. government had, for decades, been secretly recovering and reverse engineering non-human craft. And that the people running those programs had actively misled Congress about the existence of the program and of the craft that they had recovered. Now, that testimony that David Grusch gave detonated across the world, and it made its way into congressional hearings, and then kind of forced the political pressure that is very difficult to just kind of walk back. And then in February of 2026, President Trump directed federal agencies, the Department of Defense, FBI, NASA, State Department, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Department of Energy, all these different people to begin identifying and declassifying government records related to UAPs. He cited, quote, the tremendous interest shown by the public. And as a quick reminder, here's what he said, quite literally. Based on the tremendous interest shown, I will be directing the Secretary of War and other relevant department and agencies to begin the process of identifying and releasing government files related to alien, extraterrestrial life, UAP, UFOs, and any and all of their information connected to these highly complex and interesting, important matters. God bless America. And then on May 7th, the first batch is what they're calling them, batches. The first one was ready. And he wrote basically what we saw on this, Truth Social post that I pulled up a little bit earlier. You guys can decide for yourselves what's going on and have fun. The program that he launched is called Pursue, which is a cute little name, I will say. I like when the acronyms are like a little word. And it's the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. And it lives at a dedicated government portal that is kind of like something like out of the X-Files, right? It's like white typewriter font on a black background. You got military photographs of all these flying objects, and it's got a bunch of aesthetic, and it's kind of giving Tumblr vibes, if I may say that. It feels like someone making a UFO site. Can you pull it up? It feels very much ooh, I'm getting something secretive.
Even the font is kind of...
Yeah, it's Courier, I think. It just feels ooh, what are we getting into? And here's what's basically in the files. 120 PDFs, 28 videos, and 14 images. 162 total files, all sourced from these different departments that we said, DOD, FBI, NASA, etc. And the files span from the year 1948 to 2026. Now, the Department of War, which Trump renamed back in September, it used to be Department of Defense, Department of War, the DOW, the DOW, basically said that the materials archived on the site are unresolved cases. So, what does that mean? It means that the government has not reached a conclusion on what the nature of these images are or what they're looking at. So it's unresolved. It's not debunked or not explained or just not just disregarded. It's filed, in kind of this vague, ambiguous kind of state. It's not oh, this is obviously a weather balloon. They're basically just saying, we don't know what this is, and we also can't say that it's nothing. And now, according to the Department of War, more tranches are going to be dropping every few weeks and on an ongoing basis because of the, quote, scope of the project. Now, we will be doing follow-up episodes for every new tranche that's dropped. And this is, like I said, only the first batch. So, Representative Tim Burchett said in a statement, I would like to remind people that transparency won't all happen at once. It will take some time. Now, that brings us to what's actually inside the files, because, buried in 162 different documents is something that most of the coverage on this is kind of glossed over. A lot of people are just oh, aliens are real. Why aren't you guys reacting? And then other people are just Yeah, this is BS. This is a nothing burger, which I hate when people say nothing burger. But it's like, it just feels very millennial to me.
It's also not a burger if it's nothing.
What is a nothing burger? Like, I don't know. This is a digression. But what's up, guys? We're going to take a break real quick because I got to tell you something kind of embarrassing. All right. I've been working out pretty consistently for a while. I love working out. I think it's super important, part of my daily routine. And I don't really eat garbage. And I'm doing all the stuff you're supposed to do. And I got in pretty good shape. But at some point, I noticed the results kind of just stopped like matching my effort. Kind of around the time that I had a kid. You know, I'd put in like the same amount of work, but like I wasn't getting the same results at the gym. I would get like, you know, a little bit more belly fat. My energy was kind of inconsistent. Recovery was taking a little bit longer. And I assumed like I was just getting older, which makes sense, right? You know, guys, when they hit their 30s, testosterone not like naturally goes down. And, you know, when that happens, your body literally starts storing more fat and you start losing muscle faster. But here's the thing that messed me up. The more body fat you carry, the more your body actually converts testosterone into estrogen, which makes it even easier to gain this fat. And it's a cycle that keeps on going around. And so I started taking Mars Men. And honestly, I've been on it for a while and I've actually noticed a difference. This is going to sound crazy. This is real. 2024, I did blood work. My testosterone was like fine. It was like on the little lower side of normal. And I did blood work recently, completely unrelated to this. And I've been taking Mars Men for, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 months. My testosterone went up. Now, I don't know if it's from Mars Men. I'm not going to say it's only them. You know, maybe I've been eating a little cleaner. I've been sleeping better. Who knows? But my testosterone actually got an increase. I mean, I couldn't believe it. My energy feels steadier throughout the day. My workouts have been better. And going into summer, I'm actually like leaning out in a way that I feel better about. Now, Mars Men is a natural supplement. I don't even have it in the studio because it's at my house. There's no synthetic hormones, no sketchy stimulants, just actual ingredients like Tongkat Ali, Shilajit, zinc, boron, and they're designed to actually support healthy testosterone levels. Now, look, you can just go buy all of these supplements yourself. You can go buy Tongkat Ali, Shilajit, but you got to make sure they're from the right place. You got to make sure they're the right quality, and it can get expensive to actually like parse it all together. But with Mars Men, it's just all of it in one, already done for you. It's made in the USA, it's third-party tested in every batch, and over 91% of users actually report higher energy. Now, here's the crazy thing with Mars Men. There's a 90-day money-back guarantee. 90 days, 3 months of trying it out, and if it's not for you, you get your money back. Zero risk. And for a limited time, the people who are listening to this program, you're going to get 50% off for life. I don't know how often this offer comes around. I don't know why they're doing this. 50% off for life, free shipping, and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. It's also available on Amazon. It really worked for me. I like it. I still take it because, you know, I like natural supplements and it makes me feel good. Now, when they ask where you heard about it, tell them the good people at Camp Gagnon sent you. It really helps the show more than you know. Now, let's get back to it. Now, there's a bunch of things in the files that are interesting. We're going to kind of go through the most interesting ones. And what's interesting is that the first thing in the file chronologically doesn't start in Roswell. It doesn't even start in America. It actually starts in Nazi Germany. Yes. The oldest file in the batch isn't a blurry photo of like a thing in the sky or like an alien. It's an FBI field report from 1944. World War II is still going on, and the FBI just received a tip. According to the declassified report in the files, the Bureau was told that the Nazi regime had built a disc-shaped aircraft constructed in the Black Forest region of Austria. Now, the report doesn't confirm that this happened. The FBI included a disclaimer plainly stating in the document itself that the file contained neither recommendations nor conclusions of the agency. So in other words, this is a tip that we got. We're not saying if it's true or not. We're just telling you what someone told us. But here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't coming out of nowhere. The Nazi aerospace program was, by every historical measure, decades ahead of the Allied forces. So the Horten brothers, Reimar and Walter, had already developed a functional flying wing aircraft. Can you pull a picture of that? The Horten Ho 229, which used radar-absorbing carbon, hybrid plywood to evade detection. And this was flying around during World War II, like 1944. I mean, yes, this is an image here. I mean, the thing looks crazy. It kind of looks like the Delta bomber, doesn't it?
It looks like something out of the Jetsons.
A little bit. And it's like, this is the kind of stuff that the Nazis were cooking with on their aerospace programs way back in the day. Now, Nazi engineers were simultaneously developing jet propulsion, rocket technology, guidance systems that the Americans and the Soviets were super desperate to acquire. So desperate that after the war ended, they launched competing programs to snatch German scientists before the other side could actually get them, right? Like Nazi Germany falls apart, gets dissolved, and the Soviets and the Americans both want the information. They're like, hey, you guys were making crazy stuff. Like, you guys are obviously evil, but you guys are like on the forefront of a lot of tech. We want that. So the American program was called Operation Paperclip. Hundreds of Nazi scientists, including rocket pioneer Werner von Braun, were quietly brought to the United States and then integrated into the military-industrial complex that built all of the technology during the space race. So when the FBI mentions a Nazi flying disc in the Austrian Black Forest in 1944, the gap between like a credible lead and like a crazy conspiracy theory is a lot narrower than it might seem like on its face. But that's not the entire thing, because the Nazi stuff in these files doesn't just stop in 1944. In the immediate post-war period, strange sightings started appearing in Scandinavia, Western Europe, and a bunch of other places that American and, broadly just allied investigators couldn't really explain. So the State Department cables from 1948, included in this specific file release, documented officials in Sweden and the Netherlands saying that the objects being reported, quote, did not originate from any known culture on Earth. That's literally what a telegram, like a cable that comes through to these different government dignitaries is saying, that they're seeing sightings from something not from any known culture on Earth. Now, again, that is officials in Sweden and the Netherlands that are saying this in 1948. Now, okay. Before we go crazy off the deep end, a skeptic would reasonably point out that in 1948, the full scope of the Soviet aerospace capabilities were still largely unknown to everyone. Not from any known culture on Earth. That just might mean like, we don't know if this is Soviet, we don't know what this is, but we don't really even know how to say that in a cable. You know what I mean? Like, it's possible that they're just basically being like, this thing is crazy, but they're saying it through this kind of like antiquated messaging system that, doesn't really come through that clearly. But consider what it means if that is the explanation, right? It means that Western officials in 1948 believed the Soviets might be operating craft so advanced that trained investigators couldn't assign them to, one of the civilizations on Earth, right? That's not like super reassuring. That's basically just them being like, hey, this tech is so advanced, like whatever we're seeing up here is so crazy advanced that the Soviets are cooking on something insane. So that's just like an interesting little look into that post-war period and the kind of technological race that was already bubbling up between the United States and the USSR. Either way, the phrase that went into that archive is pretty significant, and the fact that it's in there, I think, is very interesting. And the story doesn't just stop there, because the sightings from 1947 to 1968, they are probably the most heavily documented sections in the files. And one of those central documents is a massive FBI file, hundreds of pages detailing the, quote, eyewitness accounts and public reports of UFO sightings, specifically during the Cold War.